Hello and welcome to episode 256 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva, and hashtag Team No Sex is trending. Thanks to Urban Meyer. The PSM is popping. Thanks to Mo Alley Cox. Thanks to Big Don Parham. It's a great day to be alive. Evan, how's it going?
Yep, coming off a pretty good week. Excited for week 5. Let's jump in.
On today's show, and each Tuesday this season, Evan and I are going to go team by team, highlighting the most important things we saw from a fantasy perspective and key takeaways. Before we get into it, 2 things. First, if you have not subscribed to our in-season package yet, you are missing 95% of the content we put out each week. Silva's matchups, our projections, ownership projections, all our shows, premium podcasts. We do have weekly and monthly options up on the site now. Check it out on the subscribe page. Second, this show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks.com. You guys know me. You know I love player props, and I know a ton of people out there don't have access to legal player props because they're in New York or California or Texas or a bunch of other ridiculous states that don't have regulated sports betting. PrizePicks is legal and regulated in those states. You can bet their props in parlay form. To help, we have a table up each week to compare our projections to PrizePicks. We're also in the Discord firing off some stuff in the PrizePicks channel. If you want to give them a try this week, they have a 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100. Use promo code ETR to get the best deal, or use the link in the show notes. Again, promo code ETR at prizepicks.com for the instant deposit bonus and the best deal. All right, Evan, let's get into it with the NFC and the Arizona Cardinals. Really, really impressive win for the Arizona Cardinals. And the more I look at it, man, and I wouldn't wish injury on anyone, but Chase Edmonds is one James Conner injury away from going absolutely nuclear. Like this Conner roll, he has 5 rushes from inside the 5-yard line. He's turned 4 of them into touchdowns, but in everything else, Chase Edmonds just looks so great. What do you see out of the Cardinals? Really good win for the fake sharp Cliff as they move to 4-0.
Absolutely. And they took care of Aaron Donald in this game. Their offensive line is kicking butt. Kyler Murray is absolutely the MVP favorite through the first 4 weeks of the season. Rondale Moore, the usage distribution in Arizona's wide receiver core has just been steady, and it's probably going to take an injury to Christian Kirk, AJ Green, or DeAndre Hopkins for Rondale Moore to move out of the number 4 receiver role. Rondale Moore has done well with his touches, but they are committed to using him as the number 4 receiver. And I don't think we're going to see a changing of the guard at this point with how well they're playing. Why would they change things? Mm-hmm. It's going to take an injury. Yeah,
Rondale only ran a route on 39% of Kyler dropbacks in week 4. I have some bets on Brandon Staley to be coach of the year at plus 950, at 10-1, at 11-1. I'm a little worried, though, that right now, Cliff looks like he could be the coach of the year, which makes me sick to my stomach to even think about, but I still like going with Staley here.
Yeah, I got a little bit of Matt Rule and a little bit of Staley.
Nice. Falcons. So the offense breaks out. We'll talk about this Washington defense again in a little bit here, but the offense does break out. Everybody's talking about Cordarrelle Patterson, broke the slate on 23 snaps. Only 12 snaps as a running back, 11 snaps as a wide receiver. He gets 34.6 DraftKings points. I don't want to brush this off because he's playing so well and Mike Davis is playing so poorly that his role could expand. So I'm not going to say CPAT's only going to play 23 snaps each week, but I would note that Wayne Gallman is also mixing in now. Wayne Gallman was in for 10 snaps, stole 6 carries, and stole a target. So obviously it looks really bad for Mike Davis. I think more people want to know, though, Evan, what is your take on Cordarrelle Patterson's outlook going forward?
He's had 2 games so far. One game where he scored 3 touchdowns and another game where he scored 2 touchdowns. It's very unsustainable. But he's clearly become a significant factor in the Falcons offense week to week. And I think that he's in play each week as a flex option in season-long leagues. You just see, there was 1 year where Eddie Royal came out the gates and in the first 3 or 4 weeks scored 7 touchdowns, and it's not going to hold up. But I do think that he has carved out a permanent role in Arizona, in Atlanta's offense. The Falcons need playmakers. They're still struggling to get the ball really consistently to Calvin Ridley. Matt Ryan threw 4 touchdown passes. They upped his ADOT in week 4 to 12.5. They started, and Calvin Ridley still did not have a big game. So Cordarrelle Patterson is a much needed playmaker for them. Yeah, I think it's looking grim for Mike Davis, actually, at this point, with Wayne Gallman moving up into the rotation, Cordarrelle Patterson having that, locked in role. I mean, it's all of a sudden it has the potential to be a 3-man backfield.
Yeah. And one other thing that I'd say is that it used to be when you played Matt Ryan, you knew like exactly where the ball was going. And I played a Matt Ryan double. I talked about on the solo pod in tournaments this week. And I was like, man, if Matt Ryan goes off, it's going to be to Calvin Ridley and to Kyle Pitts. That's not the case anymore. I mean, they're spreading it out way more and don't have that double access. Carolina Panthers. Sam Darnold has 5 rushing touchdowns in 4 games. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Now you can say that's going to regress, but that could turn into more Sam Darnold passing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Sam Darnold's been one of the biggest fantasy breakouts of the year. Also good news for the Panthers, even though they lost this game, Christian McCaffrey could be back as soon as this week's home game against the Eagles. Thought Chuba Hubbard was fine. Certainly not Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore went absolutely nuclear in garbage time, but man, that dude is a baller, still only 24 years old. It's hard to think of dynasty assets much better than DJ Moore. What you see out of the Panthers, who went down to Dallas and got beat up pretty good.
Yeah, and remember before the game, we were being asked, should we worry about Trayvon Diggs as it pertains to DJ Moore? And the answer was that Trayvon Diggs had an awesome game and DJ Moore still balled, TF out. So, it's the cornerback wide receiver matchups. Yeah, they can be helpful at times, but there are just as many times, if not more, that focusing on them will lead you in the wrong direction. And DJ Moore had an unbelievable game. So did Trayvon Diggs, who, by the way, Ryan Reynolds. I was talking to Ryan Reynolds, our waiver wire and the futures guy. He was like, "Hey, Trayvon Diggs, 65-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year a couple of weeks ago." Now all of a sudden he's got 5 interceptions. He's been shadowing some of the best wide receivers in the NFL and doing well against them. So I love that price from Ryan Reynolds. Got to check his articles out each week. Ian Thomas stayed ahead of Tommy Tremble, your air quotes friends sleeper of the week. So yeah, Sam Darnold now is the overall quarterback 5 in fantasy. Greg Rosenthal, if you're listening. And then, I thought that Chuba Hubbard's usage was actually pretty disappointing because they used Rodney Smith as the passing game back. He ran 9 more routes and he saw 3 more targets. Are you concerned about this or what?
So most of Rodney Smith's stuff came when the game got out of hand late in the fourth quarter, but I hear you. I mean, it's not great. I want Chuba in there getting the garbage time stuff also. So yeah, I mean, it's not great, but yeah, Rodney Smith did play a bunch late for sure. Yeah, in terms of defensive player of the year, I mean, DBs rarely win that award, and you need a lot of interceptions to do so. I believe Stephon Gilmore won it 1 year recently. But yeah, I mean, 65-1. I'm sure that price is gone, but yeah, sounds like a really good bet.
Yeah, Xavier Howard had 8 interceptions last year and still didn't win it. So yeah. I mean, it's going to be difficult, especially with Myles Garrett in the league. I mean, you're essentially going to need Myles Garrett to get hurt.
Yeah. Chicago Bears story in season long is David Montgomery's injury. David Montgomery did not tear his ACL, but it sounds like he has a pretty bad knee injury anyway. He's going to miss about a month. Damien Williams hurt his quad in this game also, but I think he's going to be fine. They didn't seem too concerned about it. We've been talking about Damien Williams for a while. I have a ton of Damien Williams in best ball. I thought his standalone role would be better than it's been. Was wrong there, but you can always suck out through injury, and it looks like that's what's going to happen. They also have Khalil Herbert on the roster, who I think they like a little bit too. So I don't think that Damien's going to play every snap. Herbert will probably mix in also, but I'm curious what you think. How are the Bears going to play it now that David Montgomery is out a month?
Yeah, assuming that Damien Williams is healthy, because he did suffer a thigh injury, but I think he returned. It sounds like he's going to be okay, but this will be a situation to monitor on the injury report. I think that he should be the clear lead guy, but Khalil Herbert is an excellent stash. 6th-round pick, but he averaged almost 8 yards per carry in his final season at Virginia Tech, and he ran 4.46 at 5'8", 210. He's like a stocky, well put together little dude who can run, and was a big playmaker, a highly efficient runner in college. So I think he's an excellent stash. I think that we now have reason to be optimistic about the going forward outlook of the Bears offense. Because Bill Lazor took over as the play caller, and You remember at the end of last year, he took over the Bears play caller and their offense played really, really well down the stretch. Remember, David Montgomery was like a lead winner in the second half of the season. Well, they really stretched out Justin Fields in this game because the Matt Nagy week 3 game plan, really the Andy Dalton game plan, was to get the ball out of his hands quickly, not use him as a runner. They still need to use him more as a runner, but they gave him deep drops. They gave him max protections so that he could, move back in the pocket and put his downfield passing ability to use. His ADOT shot up to 13.6. I mean, he was throwing big time deep balls to Darnell Mooney in this game, just right on his hands, just putting it right on his hands or wherever, Darnell Mooney could go get it. And Darnell Mooney can absolutely go get it. So I think that the arrow is pointing up on the Bears offense. They do have a really tough schedule though. And they still have problems on the offensive line. So it could be a little bit rocky. Justin Fields was not good in fantasy in this game, but that was primarily because, the 3 touchdowns that the Bears scored were all rushing touchdowns by running backs. And they're going to need to use him, I think, more as a runner, period, just because they're going to be without David Montgomery for the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you just looked at Justin Fields' fantasy score, you would think he had a bad game. He played awesome. I mean, he was really good, and there's going to be better days ahead in fantasy for Justin Fields. That's assuming that the donk Matt Nagy lets him start Andy Dalton. I mean, Matt Nagy is still saying that when Andy Dalton gets healthy, Andy Dalton is his starter. We'll see how that plays out. Dallas. I mean, really solid win. Their pass rate over expectation has come down. I mean, Zeke is looking really good, man, and really fast. And yeah, Tony Pollard stealing plenty of stuff, but that doesn't mean Zeke can't still have big games in these scripts like they had against Carolina, and he did. One thing I'd note on the tight ends, there's starting to be a gap between Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin. I mean, Dalton Schultz ran 23 routes in this game. Blake Jarwin only ran 10 routes in this game. And so, we had an under on Dalton Schultz yardage, and that obviously in hindsight looked really, really bad. Dude is playing really, really well and separating from Blake Jarwin. What do you see out of Dallas's win over the Carolina Panthers?
Well, if you were just to look at the box score results of the past few weeks, you would think that like Dalton Schultz is the centerpiece of the Dallas Cowboys passing offense, and I don't think that that's going to hold. I mean, I think that he, has wound up being a good streamer, and he very well could remain a good streamer going forward. But I think that things are going to come full circle, and we're going to start to see CeeDee Lamb step up with some big games. The last 2 weeks have been kind of slow for him. The first 2 were really good. But I think that things are going to come full circle, and CeeDee Lamb is going to end up being the centerpiece of this passing offense. And he's an excellent buy low right now in season long. You're absolutely right about Ezekiel. I think he looks better every week, Ezekiel Elliott. And they're getting back La'el Collins in 2 weeks. So, and the kid Terrence Steele, who wasn't very good last year, who's been filling in for La'el Collins, he's been kicking butt. And Zach Martin, my goodness, I mean, he's going to be an all-pro again. Mm-hmm. And then when La'el Collins comes back, because he's got some history playing left tackle, if Tyron Smith goes down, then they can all of a sudden, they have immense depth. They have a ton of talent on this offense, top to bottom. Gallup's going to be back in a couple of weeks in all likelihood. Dak is just balling. I mean, his football IQ is just off the charts. Just very, very optimistic about this team. I think that they're in play as a Super Bowl contender. I don't know what the odds are right now. I haven't looked at them, but they should be top 10 at very worst. Maybe top 5.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line play is so good, and obviously Dak playing really well. Let's go to the Detroit Lions, and as predicted by Brandon Thorne, I mean, their offensive line got absolutely overwhelmed by the Bears. And that's going to happen a lot, but then it didn't click in garbage time, right? And so you get these, floor Swift games, you get these floor Hawkinson games when they don't rack up the garbage time points. That's just what's going to happen. I think they'll have a better chance to rack up garbage time or just rack up regular offense this week against the Vikings. What do you see out of the Lions' loss in week 4?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Dan Campbell talked about using DeAndre Swift more. DeAndre Swift did play 73% of the snaps. That's his most of the season, but he was still out-touched by Jamal Williams. So look, he's in a 2-man backfield on a pretty bad team. So I think that, we've seen that there's going to be some ups and downs, and he's going to have some big games. and he's going to have some slower ones because he's sharing time with, another back on a team that's probably not going to score a ton of points.
Yeah, and to be clear, DeAndre Swift's role is still awesome. Like it is, but we know that just like Latavius Murray did when Alvin Kamara was coming up, that Jamal Williams is going to play a ton. I think he got like 7 out of the first 8 running back touches went to Jamal Williams in this game. Green Bay, as expected, kind of a cakewalk win over the decrepit Pittsburgh Steelers. I didn't see too much. It's like they weren't really tested. The Packers were. The final score looked a lot closer than it actually was. It gave him a chance to play A.J. Dillon a bunch, and this was A.J. Dillon's best game of the season, showing that he can have standalone value in the right spots. He got 15 carries. What'd you see out of the Packers win over the Steelers?
Well, MVS, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, went on IR. Allen Lazard jumped into his role, but in this particular game, it was Randall Cobb that had the big game. And I think that can shift around, going forward, as long as MVS stays on IR, that can kind of toggle between different dudes that step up as the number 2 pass catcher in the offense. It could be a running back in a given week. It could be Tanyan. And Tanyan he played his a season high in snaps, over 70%. He saw 7 targets. He just didn't do anything with those, a lot of contested balls that Tanyan did not win. And Randall Cobb wound up being the kind of star of the week 4 show.
Los Angeles Rams, so clear that they love Darrell Henderson. And I get that Sony Michel fumbled early in this game, but in 2 full games, as pointed out by Daigle, in 2 full games this year, D. Hendo, 30 out of 34 running back carries, every single running back target, and he has every goal line touch, every inside the 5 touch. They're using Darrell Henderson like a true workhorse, like the Gurley years type workhorse. Sony fumbled. Maybe he got punished. Looked like he was going to play a little bit, if not a decent amount, at least. The other story going on here, man, this Robert Woods situation. He's pissed. He scored a touchdown in garbage time, and he like legit looked pissed about it. They play the Seahawks on Thursday. McVay is already talking about getting the squeaky wheel going for Robert Woods. I've been looking at some Van Jefferson unders to try to capitalize on maybe more stuff going to Robert Woods. What would you say to people who have Robert Woods in season long right now? And any thoughts on Van Jefferson?
I'm still buying low on Robert Woods. Again, he's a critical piece of the offense. He's not out here, it's not like Michael Gallup last year where he's just getting lost running, down the sideline. It's that they have more weapons this year. Higbee's been pretty good. Cooper Kupp has been, outstanding. They've gotten Deshaun Jackson involved for, a handful of big plays. Van Jefferson has made his mark. So that has been, really the cause of Robert Woods getting lost now and again. But I think that, at the end of the day, and I know it's been tough, if you've had him, he did wind up, he's got 1 good fantasy game. A lot of it came in garbage time. He's got 1 decent one. He's got 2 bad ones. So it's been frustrating, especially if you took him in the 4th round or, but I think that he's a buy low, and I think that he's a hold if you have him right now.
Yeah, by the way, nobody gave Van Jefferson a chance, like in dynasty circles. For the draft capital they spent on Van Jefferson, you could get him in like the 3rd round of rookie drafts, and he's I think going to prove to be a pretty good asset. Minnesota Vikings, I thought, you could argue, obviously, in hindsight, they made a mistake not holding Dalvin Cook out. Dalvin Cook started the game, looked okay, looked like he aggravated the ankle, only ended up playing 49% of the snaps, gave a lot of work to Alexander Madison, only 52% of the running back touches for Dalvin Cook. They're home against the Lions this week. I'd love to see them hold out Dalvin Cook and get his ankle right and let Alexander Madison beat up on the Lions. I'm not sure if that's how they're going to play it. Any thoughts on the Vikings loss and a really low scoring loss to the Browns?
It's a total bust of a game. There was no back and forth effect. The Vikings are now 1-3. They need victories. I hope that doesn't encourage them to force Dalvin Cook out there again, because they absolutely should be able to beat the Lions with Alexander Madison. I think that, but they're back, their backs are up against the wall again. After, and they responded against what was Seattle. They really responded, but they need victories.
New Orleans Saints, Tony Jones went down in this game. I don't know if he's going to miss time, how much he will yet, but Alvin Kamara is on pace for 331 carries this season, but only 42 targets. So, it's like I've said, they're playing like 1950s football. You can't count on more than 20 or 21 attempts for Jameis Winston on a week-to-week basis. Just is what it is. But they are getting Michael Thomas back, allegedly, in week 7 or week 8. Would you start picking up Michael Thomas now in season long? And what do you think about his outlook the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think you got to grab him if he's available for sure, because that week 7 date is coming up. Hopefully he'll be ready at that point. We haven't seen Michael Thomas play good football in a long time. And I don't think that this situation is going to be conducive for Michael Thomas to be anything more than maybe like a wide receiver 2/3, even if he's getting a big target share. They're not throwing the football enough. And I don't think that him coming back, they're going to want to continue to hide Jameis Winston in the offense. They're going to continue to incorporate Taysom Hill as both a runner and an inefficient thrower, and that takes away from the passing game. Grab him if he's available, but I have kind of limited expectations for Michael Thomas.
I mean, the target competition is so weak that Michael Thomas could see 30, 35% of the targets, but I still think they're only going to throw it 20 to 25 times a game. And so you end out with not that many targets. Still, certainly would add him if he's on waivers. Giants came back and won this game against New Orleans. I mean, Saquon Barkley is now seeing the truly elite usage that very few running backs see, all but 3 of the running back touches over the last 2 weeks and a 17% target share. I mean, absolutely massive. Also, I was skeptical on Kenny Golladay, skeptical on Kadarius Toney. They came out and played reasonably well. Yeah, it was in kind of a wild comeback type spot, but without Shep and without Slayton, they have some depth there. I'm not sure if Shep and Slayton will be back. What do you see out of the Giants comeback win?
Yeah, quiet breakout year for Daniel Jones. Throws for 400 yards in this game. We talked about how he'd been playing better than I think people realize up until this point. Also, still leads the Giants in rushing. He's a true dual threat. And it's impressive how well he played without Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. The left tackle, Andrew Thomas, has really come around this season after having a really bumpy rookie year. But you look at like his PFF stuff. I mean, he's been one of the best left tackles in the league, and they freaking needed that badly because, they lost Shane Lemieux and Nick Gates early on. Those guys were both set to be starters on the interior, but Andrew Thomas coming along, that helps. Needed it.
Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles. And, we speculated before the season that maybe Kenny Gainwell would have the Nyheim Hines share. I wasn't sure the Nyheim Hines role. I wasn't sure if he would. I mean, now it's obvious. He's playing 35% of the snaps this year is Kenny Gainwell. Leads Eagles running backs with a 12.3% target share. Like we talked about on Sunday morning, in these spots where the Eagles get behind and we expected them to be behind against the Chiefs, you can see Kenny Gainwell having big games like he did on Sunday. The other thing that I'd say, man, I know it's been a bit up and down for Jalen Hurts. I think he's good. I mean, I know he's good in fantasy, but in real life, I think you can win with Jalen Hurts. Even without Lane Johnson, I thought he played a pretty good game on Sunday, throwing to Devontae Smith a ton. What did you see how the Eagles loss to the Chiefs?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is just a cheat code in fantasy, especially where you could get him in drafts. We drafted the heck out of him.
Yeah.
And he's been a top 10 fantasy quarterback in all 4 weeks so far, with, I believe, 2 top 5 finishes. So he's been a high floor, high ceiling producer. The Eagles defense isn't good. And that is going to put them in a lot of situations where they are in comeback mode. That gives a lot of playmaking opportunities to Jalen Hurts, and it gets Kenneth Gainwell on the field. And also their offensive line continues to kind of fall apart. So that at times that can lead to more scrambling opportunities for the quarterback. They should get back Lane Johnson, though, this week, I would presume, because he was out due to a personal matter this past week. And then Jordan Mailata, their stud left tackle, should be back sooner rather than later. And they've got Landon Dickerson to fill in one of the guard spots, and Jason Kelsey still playing. So they can have a good offensive line if they get all these guys healthy. Of course, we say that every year about the Eagles.
San Francisco 49ers, I'll bury the lead to start. I mean, George Kittle is coming, man. I mean, even though he was battling a calf issue, 92% of the snaps, 82% route run rate, 27% target share. He had a touchdown in his hands on a 20 or 25 yarder, got a big hit and got it knocked out. But man, I feel like he's going to have a huge game here at some point. But anyways, I'm burying the lead. Jimmy Garoppolo went down with a calf injury, allowing Trey Lance to come in. And you can say what you want about the way Trey Lance played in real life. In fantasy, of course, as we know, he absolutely balled out.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jimmy G's going to miss time. They haven't ruled him out yet. He went for an MRI on his calf. We'll see how it comes back. But, man, I mean, this is Trey Lance's chance now. We've been waiting for this. What do you think about the 49ers, hopefully, with Lance now?
Yeah, 20.4 fantasy points in a half from Trey Lance, and he really didn't play that great. Now, he did get a wide open 76-yard touchdown or whatever it was. Down the right sideline. It was to Debo.
Yep.
And, so that was kind of a gift. But, yeah, the upside is absolutely immense, as we've been talking about since the 49ers drafted him, way back in April. I thought Trey Sermon looked a lot better this week and, just ran with a lot more decisiveness. I think he finished with 90 rushing yards. Still not involved in the passing game, but it was a promising step forward for Trey Sermon after a very, very slow and discouraging start to his rookie season.
Yeah. And I mean, Trey Lance was not in the game plan last week, right? And during the preseason, they were running a lot of read option stuff. They had those packages in for Trey Lance. They weren't in the game plan this week. I think if Trey Lance gets to start this week in week 5, all that stuff's going to be in the game plan, and I think he'll play better.
Yeah, I think we're going to see like bumps from him. It's going to be kind of bumpy when you're watching the game. But at the end of the day, he's going to have like 32 fantasy points, and you're going to be like, who gives a shit?
Right. Seattle Seahawks. Alex Collins played a ton, man. And I know we talked about this last week. I've been harping on it. Chris Carson has 3 targets on Russ Wilson's last 86 pass attempts. So he doesn't really have a pass game role right now. Also, he hasn't had more than 17 carries in a game in any of his last 18 games. It's like he's not getting a workhorse role as a rusher, and he's not getting enough targets. Now, he can get there on efficiency for sure. And he plays the Rams this week. Maybe they were kind of coddling him a bit on a short week. I kind of doubt that. But yeah, what do you think about Collins, and what do you think about the Seahawks heading into this big game on Thursday night against the Rams?
Yeah, the thing is that Alex Collins played well and outplayed Chris Carson. So now the Seahawks have incentive to continue to do what they were doing because it was working. So that's the big concern for Chris Carson. I think that in this game against the Rams, he's just like a low floor flex option, in season long. But I mean, Alex Collins, he should be rostered everywhere. I mean, there are this week, Kenneth Gainwell, Samaje Perine, Alex Collins, and Damien Williams are the 4 big waiver wire RBs. Alex Collins, I think, definitely belongs in that mix. Right there with Samaje Perine, I think, behind Damien Williams and God, who's the fucking 4th guy? Oh, so many guys. I don't write the waiver wire article.
Yeah, no, and I'd also throw Jared Patterson into the mix, who we're going to talk about in a second here. Let's go to the Bucs. As expected, with Gio Bernard out, Leonard Fournette had his normal share of the early down work, and he took the pass down work. We know they're not going to play Ronald Jones on pass downs. So Lenny had, 20 out of the 26 carries, 100% of the running back targets, 5 of them. I mean, really, really good usage for Leonard Fournette. I think that's going to continue as long as Gio Bernard is out. Bad usage, though, for O.J. Howard. Rob Gronkowski was out, and he still only ran 16 routes on 48 Tom Brady dropbacks. Cam Brate doubled them up plus with 33 routes. Clearly, Bruce Arians is not like O.J. Howard. What did you see out of the Bucs return to New England?
Yeah, O.J. Howard was just a blocker,
Yeah.
And I mean, and we got to remember that he is coming off a torn Achilles. So,
sure.
But yeah, I mean, Cameron Brate, kind of just a guy. Gronk, it sounds like, is going to be out multiple weeks. So, I mean, Cameron Brate can get in there and, maybe score a touchdown. It'd be mostly a touchdown or bust streamer, I think. Yeah, Leonard Fournette, I mean, this situation, the seas have kind of parted for him because Giovanni Bernard is out. That gives him access to a lot of receiving game work. And then Ronald Jones, we know the story about Ronald Jones. I mean, and the Bucs have clearly seen enough of him. Leonard Fournette, I think, he's essentially an every down back at this point.
Washington football team, last team we're going to do here today. Curtis Samuel made his triumphant Washington football team debut. As expected, was eased in. Only 25 out of 67 snaps. 16 routes on 42 Taylor Heineke dropbacks. Did get 4 targets for a 12% share, which is encouraging. 4 targets on 16 routes run. I'd also note that De'Ami Brown banged up his knee. I don't know how serious it is. And Logan Thomas hurt his hamstring. I don't know how serious that is either. And Antonio Gibson got banged up too. Jared Patterson, shout out to Team Preseason, was awesome in the preseason. I think he is worth looking at in deeper formats. Gibson seems like he's banged up all over. Toe, shin. I'm not sure exactly what happened to him on Sunday. He was out for some plays at the end also. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of injury stuff to watch with Washington. And as we talked about on Friday night, I mean, Taylor Heineke can sling it, man. There was some good MME stuff I had with Taylor Heineke and CPAT in the super large field stuff. But what did you see out of the Washington football team?
Yeah, I don't write the waiver wire article, but Daigle does for Roto World, now called the NBC Sports Edge. And we were talking about it last night. Logan Thomas, this absence, hamstring, typically like a 2-3 week injury, it opens up Ricky Seals-Jones. And now we have been through Ricky Seals-Jones before.
Oh, yeah.
But he could all of a sudden jump into a lot of opportunity. He's, a receiving tight end. And Taylor Heineke, he's a DGAF player. He's not going to be like, oh, Ricky Seals-Jones, this guy has given us goose eggs in fantasy, in past years. He's not going to care about that. He's just going to throw him the ball when it gets open. So Ricky Seals-Jones all of a sudden on the radar as a potential sleeper.
Yeah, I've taken plenty of air balls in my life on Ricky Seals-Jones. He was also in play in preseason a couple of times and still didn't show up. I can't believe he's even still in the league. It's actually amazing. But yeah, shout out to him. Also, shout out to Terry McLaurin, man. I mean, dude is just one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, period. All right. That's going to do it for this NFC Team by Team podcast. We'll be back shortly with the AFC Team by Team podcast. For producer Luke, for Evan, I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.